The stars stretched endlessly across the black canvas of space, silent witnesses to the rise and fall of civilizations. Among those countless points of light, humanity had carved a fragile place for itself. Once confined to a single world, humans now walked among the stars, their ships sailing beside vessels of alien design. But for all their progress, for all their victories, humanity remained an enigma to the galaxy, feared by some, admired by others, and mistrusted by many. Commander Alara. They understood that distrust better than most. She stood on the command deck of the ISS Resolute, her eyes fixed on the shimmering blue glow of the Alliance station ahead. The structure floated like a jewel in the void, its spires and rings glittering against the darkness. It was meant to be a symbol of unity, a home where dozens of species could meet as equals. But to Alara, it was little more than another battlefield one, where weapons were hidden behind smiles and words cut sharper than any blade. Her uniform was spotless, her posture perfect, her expression unreadable. Those who looked at her saw only discipline, the kind of soldier who never bent, never broke, and never faltered. They could not see the scars beneath, nor the heart she had long ago locked behind walls of iron and silence. "Commander Vey," said Lieutenant Maris, her young communications officer, "docking clearance has been granted. We are assigned berth 7. Alara nodded, her voice steady and calm. "Proceed, Lieutenant. Maintain standard approach." The crew moved with practiced efficiency, their respect for her evident in every sharp response. She was their anchor, their unshakable leader. They did not know that behind her calm eyes, memories haunted her the friends she had lost during the Kelth Dominion Wars. The choices that had cost lives she could never forget. The pain had taught her one lesson above all: never let anyone close. As the Resolute slid into dock, Alara reviewed her orders once more. She had been summoned to serve as military liaison for a joint investigation team. The Alliance suspected a new weapon was circulating on the black markets, one powerful enough to destabilize fragile peace. The Council had insisted on including both diplomats and military officers. Alara had expected this. What she had not expected was the name of the diplomat assigned to her team. Kalen Daner. She had heard the name before, whispered in council halls and military briefings. A man of unusual heritage, half human, half Valeri. The Valari were known for their sharp features, luminous eyes, and almost disarming calm. Too many humans, they seemed distant, unreadable, their emotions buried beneath layers of etiquette. Kalen, they said, carried both the passion of humanity and the serenity of the Vala. To Alara, that only meant one thing: complication. The docking clamps locked in place with a heavy shudder. Alara adjusted her gloves, straightened her uniform, and walked with crisp strides down the gangway. Her boots echoed against the metal floor as she entered the Alliance station. The air was different, here sterile, filtered, carrying the faint temps of ozone. She passed banners displaying the Alliance crest, translations of the motto glowing in dozens of alien scripts: unity through strength. Her eyes scanned the reception hall. Delegates of various species moved through the wide chamber, their clothes shimmering with strange fabrics, their voices weaving into a chorus of unfamiliar tones. Alara ignored the curious glances directed her way. Humans still drew stares, their rapid rise to galactic prominence unsettling to many. Then she saw him. Kalen stood near the far side of the hall, speaking softly with a pair of officials. Even at a distance, he stood out. His height was close to hers, his frame lean but strong, his presence calm without being passive. His dark hair carried a faint silver sheen, a trait of his Valeri blood, and his eyes clear. Steady grace seemed to look right through the noise around him when their gazes met. He inclined his head respectfully. Alara did not return the gesture. She simply walked toward him, every step controlled, every motion measured. "Commander Vey," he said when she reached him, his voice even and warm. "It is an honor to finally meet you." She studied him for a long moment before replying. "Ambassador Daner, I trust you have been briefed on the mission parameters." A small smile touched his lips, not mocking, but genuine. "Yes, but I would prefer if you called me Kalen. Titles can be walls between people, and we will need trust to succeed. Ilara's expression remained unchanged. Walls are sometimes necessary, especially when trust has not been earned. Kellen's smile faded slightly, but his calm did not waver. Perhaps, but walls can also become prisons? She did not answer. Instead, she turned to the waiting officials and requested access to the tactical data. Yet even as she spoke, she felt his gaze on her, not piercing, not demanding, but steady, as though he was trying to understand her without prying. It unsettled her more than open hostility ever could. The first briefing was held in a circular chamber deep within the station. Holographic displays floated in the air, projecting maps of trade routes and intercepted transmissions. Representatives from 5 species sat around the table, their expressions guarded. Admiral Torvin, an older Valeri officer, spoke first. "We believe the weapon has already changed hands. Its origin is unclear, but our intelligence suggests it was designed to disable human vessels specifically. That is why Commander Vey has been assigned to this team." Whispers rippled through the chamber. Ilara sat straighter, her face an unreadable mask. She had long grown used to the suspicion whenever humanity was involved. The room always grew heavier. Kellen's voice broke through the murmurs. Calm, clear, and firm. "Then it is all the more important that humanity has a voice here. Commander Vey's experience is not only relevant, but vital." The room quieted. Ilara's eyes flicked toward him, but she said nothing. Later, after the meeting had adjourned, Ilara found herself walking beside Kalen through one of the station's observation corridors. The stars spilled across the transparent wall, brilliant and endless. She focused on them, refusing to let the silence become an invitation. "You do not trust me," Kalan said quietly. She glanced at him, her jaw tightening. "Trust is earned, not given." He nodded slowly. "True, but you carry your distrust like a shield, even when no one is striking. That must be heavy." Her steps faltered for just a moment, but she quickly regained her pace. "My shield is the reason I'm still alive." Kalen did not argue. He simply looked out at the stars, his voice soft. "Perhaps, but sometimes shields can keep out more than just danger. They can also keep out light." The words lingered long after they parted ways. Ilara told herself they were meaningless, just another diplomat's attempt at poetic speech. Yet deep down, she knew they had unsettled something within her. For years she had built her walls higher and higher, convinced that nothing could reach the heart she had hidden away. But Kalen had not attacked those walls. He had simply stood before them, calm and steady, and in doing so had made her wonder if the fortress she lived in was not safety, but solitude. As she returned to her quarters, Ilara clenched her fists and forced the thought away. Feelings were distractions. Attachments were weaknesses. She had sworn never to let her heart be vulnerable again, and yet, as she closed her eyes, she could still hear his voice. Gentle as the stars outside her window, shields can keep out more than danger. They can also keep out light. The investigation began the very next cycle. Commander Ilara Vey had little time to rest, though rest was a luxury she had never allowed herself much of anyway. Her quarters on the Alliance station were functional, but cold, with steel walls and a narrow bed. She had spent the night reviewing tactical reports, ignoring the faint echo of Kellen's words that still lingered in her mind. By morning, she was once again the picture of discipline. The operations chamber was filled with soft light when she arrived. Kalen was already there, standing over a holographic map that floated in the air. The projection showed trade lanes spiderwebbing across sectors, marked with shifting points of light. He turned when she entered, offering the same calm nod he always did. "Commander," he said warmly, "I was just reviewing the possible routes. I think we may have a lead." Ilara studied the projection. "Explain, several freighters vanished in this region," Kalen said, pointing to a cluster of stars near the edge of controlled space. Their signals cut out almost instantly. No distress calls, just silence. "The timing matches intelligence reports about the weapon's movement." Ilara narrowed her eyes. "Pirates? Perhaps, but the precision suggests more than simple raiders. I believe the weapon may have been tested there." She crossed her arms, weighing his words. It was a reasonable theory, though she refused to admit aloud that she found his analysis sharp. Then that's where we start, she said firmly. A few hours later, the Resolute broke free of the station's dock and slipped into the void. Alara stood at the command chair, issuing orders with steady precision. Kalen had joined her on the bridge, though she had not asked him to. He did not interrupt her work. He simply observed, occasionally offering a quiet suggestion when asked. His presence was strangely steadying. The crew, unused to having diplomats aboard, had been wary at first, but Kalen treated them with respect, listening to their concerns and never interfering in their duties. Slowly, suspicion gave way to curiosity, and curiosity to a quiet respect. Alara noticed this. Though she kept her thoughts to herself, the journey took them through long stretches of silent space. Hours passed with only the hum of the engines and the faint chatter of the crew. Alara spent most of her time on the bridge, reviewing data. Kalen, however, often stood near the observation ports, watching the stars with a serene expression. One evening, she found him there. "You seem to spend a lot of time staring into the void," she remarked. Her tone clipped, but not hostile. Kalen turned, his expression soft. "It isn't void to me. Every star is a story. Every flicker of light is someone's home. When I look at them, I remember why peace is worth fighting for." Ilara's lips pressed into a thin line. "Peace is fragile. I've seen it shatter too many times. Then perhaps that is why you guard yourself so carefully," Kalan said quietly. "Because you fear the shattering?" Her jaw tightened. "You know nothing about what I fear," he did not argue. He simply gave her the same gentle look that unsettled her so deeply. And once again, she found herself retreating behind silence. 2 days later, they reached the coordinates. The sector was desolate, littered with asteroid fields and the wreckage of ships long forgotten. "Scanning for debris," reported Lieutenant Maris, picking up fragments. "Human origin." "Civilian freighters," Alara's eyes hardened. "Take us closer." The Resolute glided into the field of broken metal. Twisted hulls floated silently, torn apart as though by invisible claws. No scorch marks, no signs of conventional weapons. The destruction was too clean, too precise. Kalen studied the wreckage. This was not piracy. Alara nodded grimly. "No, this was a test." Suddenly, alarms blared. "Unidentified vessel approaching." Maris shouted, "Closing fast." The screen lit up with the image of a sleek, angular ship, its surface dark and gleaming. It had no transponder, no markings, only the cold menace of something built for war. They're powering weapons. Another officer cried, "Evasive maneuvers." Ilara barked. The Resolute veered sharply as beams of energy sliced through the void. The enemy ship moved with terrifying speed, circling like a predator. The Resolute shuddered under the impact of near misses, lights flickering across the bridge, shields holding at 70%. Ilira's mind raced. This was no random encounter. This was a trap. "Return fire." She ordered. Bolts of plasma streaked toward the enemy, but the vessel slipped through the barrage with impossible agility. It struck again, and the Resolute groaned in protest. "We can't take much more of this," Maurice shouted. Alara clenched her fists. "Then we find their weakness." Kalen stepped closer, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Commander, they are baiting us. If we fight them on their terms, we lose. Trust me, pull back into the asteroid field." Ilara hesitated. Every instinct told her to hold her ground, to fight. But something in Kellen's voice, calm, unwavering, made her pause. Against her own habits, she gave the order. The Resolute darted into the dense field of tumbling rocks. The enemy followed, its weapons slashing blindly. But here, the asteroids worked against them. Their speed became a weakness as they swerved and crashed against the drifting debris. Now, Ilara shouted, "Target their flank." The Resolute unleashed a barrage at the precise moment the enemy ship was forced into a narrow corridor. The blasts struck true, tearing through their shields. The vessel spun out of control, colliding with an asteroid and a burst of fire and metal. The bridge erupted in cheers. But Alara remained silent, her gaze fixed on the wreckage. Kalen turned to her, his expression calm. "You trusted me, Alara." Met his eyes, her own unreadable. Don't make more of it than it was. But deep inside she knew the truth. She had trusted him, if only for a moment, and that moment had saved them all. Later, in the quiet of the observation deck, Alara stood alone. The stars beyond the glass shimmered, as though nothing had happened. Yet inside her, something had shifted. Kalen joined her quietly, standing a respectful distance away. For a long while, neither spoke. Finally, he said, "You saved us today." "You gave me the idea," she replied stiffly. He shook his head. "I only offered a thought. You had the courage to act on it. That is the strength of humanity adaptability. You see solutions where others see only walls." His words were gentle, but they cut deep. For years, Alara had believed her walls were her strength. Yet Kalen spoke of something else entirely, a strength that came from openness, from trust, from courage to see beyond the obvious. She wanted to argue, to dismiss his words as empty diplomacy, but instead she found herself asking, "Why do you care so much? Why do you try to reach me?" Kellen's gaze was steady, his voice quiet. "Because I see the weight you carry, and no one should have to carry it alone." Alara turned away, her chest tightening. She could not allow this. She would not. And yet, his gentle words, his steady presence, his quiet trust, they had already begun to chip away at the fortress she had built, for the first time in many years. She felt something she could not control, something that frightened her more than any weapon ever could: hope. The wreck of the enemy vessel still burned in the asteroid field when the Resolute resumed its journey. But even with the immediate threat destroyed, unease lingered on the bridge. The enemy ship had been too advanced, too precise, to belong to simple raiders. Alara stood at the command console, her arms folded tightly. Her mind turned over every possibility, every fragment of data they had collected. Something about the attack gnawed at her. Kalen stood nearby, his gaze calm as always. "You're troubled." Alara gave him a sharp glance. "I don't need a diplomat to tell me that." He inclined his head slightly. "Perhaps not, but I may be able to help you understand why." Her eyes narrowed. "Go on." He stepped closer to the console, tapping a control to project fragments of the enemy vessel's systems. Holographic schematics rotated slowly in the air. "Their targeting arrays," Kalen explained, "were locked to human signatures. Not random ships, not Alliance vessels in general. Specifically human ones." The air on the bridge seemed to grow colder. Ilara's jaw tightened. "Are you saying the weapon is designed only to destroy us?" "Yes." Kellen's tone was steady, but his eyes were grave. "This is not the work of outside raiders. It is too focused, too deliberate. Someone within the Alliance must be funding this." The crew around them shifted uncomfortably, whispers rising. Alara silenced them with a sharp gesture. Inside, however, her chest felt heavy. Humanity had long fought for a place in the Alliance. Many races had feared their adaptability, their relentless will to survive. Now it seemed those fears had taken shape in the form of a weapon meant to erase them. The next council meeting was tense. The circular chamber was crowded with officials, their voices raised in heated argument. Projections of the destroyed freighters and the wrecked enemy vessel glowed in the center. Admiral Torvin, the Valeri officer who had assigned Alara to the team, stood with arms behind his back. His voice rang out across the chamber. "We cannot confirm the origins of this weapon. To accuse the Alliance itself would be reckless." Alara rose to her feet. Her voice was sharp and unwavering. "With respect, Admiral, the evidence is clear. This weapon was designed to target humans. That cannot be coincidence." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some delegates nodded, others frowned. Their eyes filled with suspicion. A counselor from the Theran species hissed. Perhaps it was humanity's own doing. "You create chaos, and then cry victim to gain sympathy." Alara's hands curled into fists. Anger burned in her chest, but she forced her voice to remain cold. "My people did not design a weapon to slaughter ourselves. Whoever did this is trying to drive us out of the Alliance. Kalen stepped forward then, his calm presence drawing attention. Commander Vey speaks truth. Humanity has fought harder than any to prove their loyalty to this alliance. If they wished to destroy others, they would not risk everything by targeting themselves. Someone fears humanity's strength, and they are willing to break unity to eliminate it. The council chamber erupted into arguments once again. Alara watched, her jaw clenched. She could see it, the fear in their eyes, the reluctance to stand beside her people. Even here, among supposed allies, she was surrounded by suspicion, and then the blow fell. A security officer entered suddenly, his voice ringing across the chamber. "Commander Vey, you are ordered into custody on suspicion of leaking military intelligence." Gasps filled the room. Alara's hand dropped to her sidearm. What is this nonsense? Admiral Torvin's face was unreadable. "Evidence has surfaced that you may have provided data to enemy agents. Until the matter is resolved, you will be detained." Alara felt the blood drain from her face, though her expression remained hard. This was no mistake. It was a setup. Someone within the Alliance wanted her silenced. Kalen stepped forward sharply. "This is absurd. Commander Vey has risked her life for this investigation." "Stand aside, Ambassador," the officer snapped. "This is not your concern." But Kalen did not move. His voice was steady, but beneath it lay iron. "It is my concern. Because if you take her, you take the truth with her." Hours later, Lara found herself locked in a stark holding chamber deep within the station. The walls were smooth metal, the only light a faint glow from above. She sat on the narrow bench, her hands clasped tightly. She had been betrayed before. But this betrayal cut deeper because it came not from enemies, but from those who had claimed to be allies. The door slid open. Kalen entered, his expression calm, but his eyes filled with quiet anger. "They had no right," he said softly. "I know this was a fabrication." Alara gave a short, humorless laugh. "Rights don't matter when fear rules the council." He moved closer, lowering his voice. "I will get you out of here. There are still those who trust me. I can move between shadows where you cannot." Her eyes narrowed. "Why? Why risk yourself for me?" Kalen met her gaze without flinching. "Because I believe in you. And because I refuse to let fear and lies destroy what little trust this alliance has left." Alara turned away, her chest tight. "You don't understand. If you stand with me, you'll make yourself a target. They'll come after you too." His voice was soft, but firm. "Then let them. I would rather face danger at your side than safety without honor." Something inside her cracked then, something she had held shut for years. She pressed her hands to her face, struggling to contain the storm within. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't let myself trust anyone. Every time I do, I lose them. I can't survive that again." Kellen's hand touched her arm lightly. Not forceful, not demanding. Just a gentle, steady touch. "Alara, you have survived so much already. But surviving is not the same as living. You don't have to carry this alone." She froze, her body trembling at the warmth of his hand. For so long, she had kept her walls high, convinced they made her strong. Yet in this quiet chamber, under his steady touch, those walls felt more like chains than protection. Slowly, painfully, she lowered her hands and met his eyes. His expression held no judgment, no pity, only calm belief. Her voice was raw when she spoke. "I am afraid, I know," Kalen said softly. "And that is why you are strong. Because you face your fear every day, still you keep moving forward." The silence that followed was heavy, but it was no longer empty. For the first time in years, Lara felt the faintest crack in the fortress around her heart. That night, Kellen's allies within the station helped them slip away. Disguised and hidden, they fled into the lower decks, where the shadows of the station hid fugitives and smugglers. Here, among the forgotten corridors, Alara and Kalen became partners not only in duty, but in survival. They moved carefully, avoiding patrols, piecing together the conspiracy with scraps of stolen data. Each danger they faced brought them closer, not because of grand declarations, but because of quiet trust built in every decision, every glance, every unspoken word, and in the quiet between those moments, Alara felt something unfamiliar stirring within her. It frightened her more than the enemies who hunted them. Because it was not weakness. It was the slow, steady return of hope and perhaps something more. For the first time in years, she was no longer certain her walls could hold. The vast meeting chamber of the Alliance High Council was filled with tension. Tall pillars of polished crystal reflected the soft glow of the ceiling lights, and rows of alien delegates sat in silence, waiting for the accusations to be spoken. For the first time in many years, Commander Alara Vey did not feel the cold weight of isolation pressing on her shoulders. Kalen was standing beside her, his calm presence a reminder that she was no longer alone. The betrayal they had uncovered was awe-shocking. Members of the Alliance had secretly created a weapon to destroy human fleets. They had justified their plan with fear. Humanity, with its unpredictable courage and adaptability, had unsettled too many ancient powers. They had decided the safest path was to remove humans before they grew too strong. Now the truth was in Alara's hands. She stepped forward, her voice steady, though her heart pounded. "Honored Council," she began, tone carrying across the chamber, "we discovered the weapon in the remains of a derelict warship. Its purpose is clear. It was designed not to defend the Alliance, but to strike against humanity. We have the evidence. We have the records of the conspirators. This is not the unity the Alliance claims to stand for." Murmurs rippled through the delegates. Some looked away in guilt, others whispered in fear. And a few narrowed their eyes at her with hidden anger. Kalen placed a hand gently on her shoulder. He did not speak, but the small gesture gave her strength. She no longer had to fight this battle alone. The unmasking of fear one of the alien delegates, scaled figure with golden eyes, rose to speak. His voice was sharp and accusing. "Humans are reckless. They leap into conflict without thinking of consequence. They are dangerous to the balance we have maintained for centuries. The weapon was only a precaution." Alara's jaw tightened, but she did not raise her voice. She had learned that true strength did not always come from shouting. "Precaution?" she asked. "You call destroying an entire people a precaution. You fear us because we adapt, because we endure. That fear says more about your own weakness than our strength." Her words hung in the air. Kalen stepped forward, his expression calm but firm. "She is right," he said. "I have lived among humans and among my mother's people. I have seen both sides. Humanity is not perfect. They stumble, they fight, they bleed, but they rise again. That is not a threat to unity. It is the key to surviving the dangers beyond our borders. If you destroy them, you will destroy the very hope that holds this alliance together." A heavy silence followed. The chamber felt like it was holding its breath. For the first time, some of the delegates seemed unsure of themselves. A spark of inspiration as the council debated. Alara felt the eyes of countless humans upon her. Soldiers, engineers, explorers her people had placed their trust in her voice. She thought of all the times she had hidden her heart behind walls, convincing herself that emotions were weaknesses. But now she understood. It was not walls that gave strength, but connections. She turned to the gathered crowd. "I once thought keeping my heart locked away would protect me, but I was wrong. Humanity's strength does not come from walls. It comes from our bonds, our courage to reach out even when we are afraid." Kalen reminded me of that. "And I tell you now, if you strike at us, you strike at the very heart of this alliance. Because we are not going anywhere. Humanity will endure." Her voice carried with such conviction that even those who had doubted her fell silent. For a moment the chamber seemed brighter, as if her words had lit a fire within the cold crystal walls. The turning of the tide. The council's investigation quickly confirmed the evidence Alara and Kalen had presented. The conspirators who had created the weapon were exposed. Some protested, claiming fear had forced their hand, but their excuses rang hollow. In the end, the council voted. The weapon would be dismantled, its creators stripped of their authority. Humanity would remain in the alliance, not as a tolerated outsider, but as an equal partner. When the announcement was made, cheers echoed from the human fleet. For the first time in years, Alara allowed herself to smile without restraint. the final battle, but victory was not yet complete. A faction of conspirators refused to accept the council's ruling. They seized the weapon and attempted to unleash it in one final act of defiance. Alara and Kalen led the charge to stop them. Together with a fleet of loyal ships, human and alien alike, they intercepted the rebels. Near a barren moon, the battle was fierce. Energy blasts streaked across the void, and massive ships clashed in the darkness of space. Alara commanded with precision, her calm voice guiding her crew through the chaos. "Target their engines. Disable, don't destroy," she ordered. "We will end this without becoming like them." Kalen stood at her side, coordinating the allied ships. His steady presence balanced her sharp decisions, each of them covering the other's weaknesses. At the height of the battle, the enemy activated the weapon. A surge of destructive energy began to build, aimed directly at the human fleet. Alara's heart pounded. She knew they had only moments to act. "Kalen, we have to overload the weapons core from inside the control ship," she said. He nodded without hesitation. "Then we go together." They boarded the enemy vessel, fighting through corridors filled with resistance. Alara's determination never faltered. Kalen fought beside her, his calm strength steadying her resolve. At last they reached the weapons core chamber. The massive machine pulsed with unstable energy, threatening to wipe out every human ship within range. Alara's mind raced. If we reroute the power, we can overload it. But someone has to hold the system until the energy peaks. Kalen looked at her with quiet certainty. "We do it together." Their hands moved across the controls in perfect sync, rerouting circuits, overriding fail-safes. Sparks flew, alarms blared, but they held their ground. When the energy finally peaked, the weapon exploded in a blinding flash. Its power turned inward, consuming itself. The shockwave rattled the ship, but Alara and Kalen held on until silence returned. The weapon was gone. The danger was over. A new dawn. When they returned to the fleet, they were greeted as heroes. But Alara no longer thought of herself as a lone warrior or a symbol of human defiance. She was simply a woman who had finally let herself be seen. Standing beside Kalen on the observation deck, she looked out at the stars. "For so long I believed walls kept me safe," she said softly. "But it was never safety. It was loneliness." Kalen turned to her, his gentle gaze steady. "And now?" She smiled, a true smile that reached her eyes. "Now I know I don't have to carry it all alone. Humanity doesn't have to stand alone. I don't have to stand alone." His hand brushed against hers. A quiet reminder of everything they had fought for, not just survival, but connection. The alliance was stronger now. Not because of fear or weapons, but because trust had taken root. Humanity's spirit had endured, and in doing so, it had changed the galaxy. Closing scene as the fleets moved forward into a new chapter of history. Alara felt no walls around her heart. The fortress she had built for so many years was gone. Torn down not by force, but by kindness. Kellen's gentle touch had broken through where nothing else could. And in that simple truth, she found not just hope for herself, but for all of humanity. For the first time, the stars did not look cold. They looked like home,